in the history of crypto, and I mean it. XRP is exploding through $3 like it wasn't there because there was no resistance at $3. The darn level goes back to 2018. Why was everyone wound up about it? So here's a question for you in XRP land. Why isn't it at $5 already? Or a better question, what stops it from going to $5? Nothing. Nothing stops it from going to $5. Now let's go over to Bitcoin, because what I'm going to do is we're going to go from Bitcoin to Ethereum to XRP and back. We're going to be talking about first the Bitcoin strategic reserve. That isn't. This is the most unbelievable story I think I've heard since FTX. 1 minute, 6 months ago, we're going to have the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Well, we never heard anything about the Sovereign Wealth Fund because they don't have any Bitcoin to put in it. They don't. There's no Bitcoin to put in there because either Brandon or the current administration sold it all. They said they had Bitcoin and they didn't. So much for on-chain transparency. So 1 minute, Cynthia Lummis in the Senate is trying to get a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and we're talking about, buying 1 million Bitcoin. Sorry, Uncle Sugar has no Bitcoin. So what does that make him? Short. Literally, the US government doesn't have enough Bitcoin. They're actually short the market, which is incredible because this week is American-made crypto week. They're going to pass all this legislation. Why? Because the orange man has 8% of his net worth in crypto. So I guess he would prefer it, if the government paid $250K for Bitcoin, or if everybody got in front of every other government. In other words, if we don't have it, who else doesn't have it? As in Bitcoin, nobody. Now let's switch to Ethereum. The Ethereum price prediction. Did you know that there is something about Ethereum that would shock you? That Ethereum is back where it was back in the old FTX days. In other words, really with Ethereum at 3,300, what's happened? Nothing. They just unwound all the bearishness. That's it. And what about Solana? Why isn't Solana at 220 again? Why is Bitcoin at its all-time high and Solana hasn't really moved in over a year? It's Altseason after all. That's what you clicked on for the title. So this is how you get Altseason. Not enough Bitcoin. Ethereum just getting started. Banks coming to DeFi. They're already here. Robinhood's on Arbitrum and so is PayPal. Arbitrum is an ETH layer too. And the XRP breakout could be absolutely epic. XRP has been, frankly, in a range since January. Everyone's selling it, including XRP insiders. Everyone's selling it. Now what's going to happen to fuel Altseason, right? It's going to be XRP and the realization that Ripple is going to get taken over. And even if they don't get taken over, as XRP rises, so does the value of Ripple. So rising XRP could lead to rising value of Ripple, which could lead to an IPO or a takeover. Notice, it's alt season in the stock market. Do you realize that some big stocks today, you had a 7% rally in Bitcoin? You had 3 crypto equities up more than 20% in one day. They, as in stocks, they got more crypto fever than we do, for God's sakes. So Ethereum wakes up, runs the future of finance. XRP is fast money. It's not only fast money, but it's fast American-made money. And this administration is going way out of its way, dare I say it, to dig their own grave. It's actually the dream. It is. It's the Satoshi Nakamoto, John McAfee Declaration of Cryptocurrency Independence. It doesn't get any better than this. In January, we were looking for Uncle Sugar to moon our bags, to, put our coin in their strategic Bitcoin reserve or strategic crypto reserve. Now, they're doing us one better. They're taking us back to our crypto roots. Deficit spending, $2 trillion at a time. Bang. Then they're going to come out and say, well, just kidding about the amount of Bitcoin that we had. We're actually short the market. We don't have what we said we have. Then that's going to filter out and people are going to say, you know what? I think we need Web3. Because today, essentially, the president said something that they remind me of the French Revolution. Like one of the royalties and one of the royals in France came out and said, let them eat cake. This started the French Revolution. And then the Orange Man tells his entire base that turned out in huge crowds to see him on like a world tour. It wasn't a campaign. He said, you know what? I don't need your support anymore. You little guys, you brokies, you don't matter. Oh, okay. Well, excellent, bro. That's awesome. Because on one hand, Congress is like legalizing crypto, making it go mainstream at the exact same time that governments couldn't behave worse. War, conflict, massive deficit spending. I mean, it's everything you ever wanted from Satoshi Nakamoto. Really, from the Bitcoin white paper. All the reasons out there to absolutely indiscriminately moon altcoins. Now, Web3 is still worth less than $1 trillion. NVIDIA is at $4 trillion. That's worth more than Amazon, Walmart, and Costco put together. And these guys in stocks are going to figure out very quickly. There's an Ethereum ETF that to them is going to look extremely cheap relative to any other tech stock. Then they're going to go one step further and start going after the XRP futures contract. That's right. People don't know that in Legacy, there's an XRP futures contract, which will get a lot of attention from commodity trading advisors or mechanized momentum hedge funds, whatever you want to call them. Those XRP contracts are going to get people's attention. And you're witnessing an XRP rally overnight US time. Yeah, that's because they know that in the morning, they're coming after those futures contracts. They are. So when you have Altseason, you have gradually, then suddenly. And this thing about Uncle Sugar not having the Bitcoin that he said he had makes you wonder where all the gold is in Fort Knox, right? The gold in Fort Knox is not on the blockchain. If they were hiding something about Bitcoin, what else are they hiding? And we're saying in this environment, we don't need Web3. We don't. Yes, we do. And the market's telling you that. Not to mention that all these Bitcoin profits that everybody made all of a sudden are pouring into a suppressed altcoin space. I mean, how high can SUI go? I mean, start just picking out psychological numbers, right? XRP, $5. SUI, $5. $10, right? ETH at 4,000. Who cares? It was at 4,000 a couple times. It was in 2024. You don't think ETH can go right to 4,000? You should have seen the last cycle. ETH went from 300 to 3,000 on a rope, on an absolute rope. Okay, Smashitoshi says, way too early, bro. When do you sleep? Rarely. Because this is the biggest day in crypto. And if you're tuning into this, you really got to stay here and just sit and reflect before you look at your screens as to what is actually happening. They are telling you to go eat cake, and they are telling you to essentially, we are going to do everything we can to moon your bags. It's just not what you thought. They're just not going to tell you the truth. And then you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to have this whole thing off to the races. I mean, it doesn't have to be more complicated. Bonk went up 20%. What's Bonk? Leverage Solana, right? Pepe is going to go too. What's Pepe? Leveraged Ethereum. A meme coin is essentially a faster moving version of the chain it travels on. So if they're telling you crypto's legal and telling you that they're short crypto, they're telling you that they don't care what you think, and crypto is your way to push back. Meanwhile, the institutions are watching this all at the same time, and they're like, oh my God, we don't want stocks. We don't want bonds. We don't want any of this stuff, any of it. And, frankly, the president may not be well on top of it, which has big, big, big dollar implications. So the more unhinged that situation becomes, the more American-made crypto becomes important. Why? Because of stable coins, right? The need to get everything on chain. I mean, Bitcoin and ETH had a good day, and the stock of Circle, which is a stablecoin company, was up 20%. It's a stablecoin company. They make stablecoins. Okay, yeah, they're going to do well. Tether does very well. But the fact of the matter is, crypto is nowhere near its potential. I mean, if you can move a stablecoin company's stock, which you would think is boring, then what can the rest of the market do under these circumstances? And of course, you're probably wondering, guys are like, bro, do you ever sleep? I'm like, no, man, I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning Central trying to tell everybody this ain't gonna wait. This ain't gonna wait 12 hours to 5 p.m. This ain't gonna wait. This thing about, the US Marshal saying, oh yeah, we don't have the Bitcoin that we said we had. Oh, really? Wow. That's a great announcement to make after you just did a $2 trillion budget deficit. I mean, the market is going to react to this, right? This is everything you ever wanted. It may not be meme coins necessarily, but anything that can act as money is going to go higher, right? I mean, XRP is telling you that. XRP did nothing, people sold, and now it's going to go to $5. I mean, there was a shocking Bitcoin move from 110 to 125. What happens if that was like the kiddie warm-up? What happens if that was like, yeah, it's nothing, right? And then I did an Ethereum price prediction video, which is a good reminder to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel, that ETH is going to go to Saylor, and ETH could be at 5,000 by the end of August. How do you like them apples? I mean, the original forecast for ETH, the sort of behind the scenes of the Ethereum price prediction, was that ETH was going to trade in a range around, 3,400 tops. Now it looks like it just wants to blow through right that, like it's not even there, right? This matters because now companies that have to make an announcement, they have to make announcements about crypto. They got to make announcements faster. Everything now happens faster. They don't have the Bitcoin they say they have, and they tell you to go eat cake, that we don't care about you, then you have to care about yourself. And that is going to lead people to hit the green button really hard. I mean, I remember what happened in 2021, right? Or 2020, when the Fed started to put high-powered money in the system. Because there's also an angle there. That one of the reasons for this alt season, right, that's what you tuned in to hear about, is that Powell may be trying to save his job by injecting high-powered money into the system, levitating the thing that the orange man owns so he can keep his job. Think it's ridiculous? Probably not. You might think it's ridiculous, but if you had thought that, Cynthia Lummis assumed the U.S. had a certain amount of Bitcoin as she runs around going, hey, let's do the strategic reserve. It's not there. It's not there. It's a scam. The scam in crypto is that they care about you and they didn't tell you the truth, so that makes them short. So Michael Saylor is essentially the American Bitcoin strategic reserve. Michael Saylor has got everybody's Bitcoin because Uncle Sugar has been selling to him. That's how Michael Saylor has been able to amass what he has. I've always said there's a seller out there. I thought it was the Chinese. Oh my God, who would have thought it was us? So this makes a really interesting point about MicroStrategy in the morning. right? If Michael Saylor is a strategic Bitcoin reserve and hedge funds are all short MicroStrategy, then what is going to happen with MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, crypto equities, and then all these altcoin futures contracts following? Everyone's like, yeah, we want TradFi involved. Well, guess what, people? TradFi is involved. They're mooning crypto stocks, they're mooning the ETFs, they're pushing ETH, and they're after that XRP futures contract. Why? Because it's eventually going to wind up in an ETF. So why not start buying it now? I mean, what do you think BlackRock did with Bitcoin when it was at like 20K after FTX? Like, oh yeah, this is going into an ETF. We're just going to start buying it now. Novogratz did it. ARK did it. They all did it. So you want Altseason? Everyone's like waiting for Ethereum. You're going to get that, right? But you may get it with XRP pushing Ethereum in terms of market cap. XRP at $5 is ignition for the whole system. And nobody thinks it can happen. Like, they were selling XRP at $3. Like, oh, yeah, I'm scared of this. Got to take profits. What is it? It's nothing. It's a psychological level. Michael Murphy says crypto is new money. Dante Chippy says no time for sleep. We need the rewards. Dude. And another guy says, in perilous times, seek out the God of your understanding. You know, guys like Alex Jones have been pointing out, and other guys on the right, even farther to the right, about, you know, sovereigns being compromised by other countries and things like that. You know, there's a lot of political stuff going on. And for once, even though I hate to say it, guys like Ray Dalio could be right. That perhaps all this debt and all this bad behavior leads to something not so good, which is all the more reason to moon crypto, because unlike the hedge funds, I actually think the resolution to all the not good things in the world is people mooning crypto. People mooning crypto hard. Everybody is used to altcoins not being able to put 2 or 3 good days together. And then if you start looking at, I don't know, you start looking at coin picks, right? It's alt season after all. You know, what happens if you start looking at American-made cryptos on Coinbase? Can you name 10 American-made cryptos on Coinbase? You know, I was looking at Scale, you know, anything that's like fast layer 1 or cross-chain trading. If you have XRP, Solana, Bitcoin, and Ethereum all moving at the same time, cross-chain becomes an unbelievable narrative. Virtuals, AI, hasn't been traded. Virtuals went from 0 to 5 billion last cycle, last turnaround, what have you. That can happen again. Fetch, artificial superintelligence token. Do you want to abdicate your life to Peter Thiel? These guys in Web 2 that are yielding so much influence in the White House? Like, they're going to pave Yellowstone National Park to build houses for technology workers that come from overseas. Now, this is not a political channel, but do you want these guys running your life? Because they're trying. They're just going to keep carrying on. And the only thing that stops them is an indiscriminately mooning crypto market. They have to pay attention. In other words, what stops Congress? What stops the Orange Man? What stops any of this nonsense? Why do you think Howard Lutnick, the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, the first thing he did after being in government for 3 months was say that his company, Cantor Fitzgerald, was going to buy a truckload of Bitcoin, because he saw how the sausage was going to get made. He saw what they were really doing. They knew how much Bitcoin they had or didn't have. And the guy from Cantor's like, okay, well, I'm going to buy it at my company because, you know, Uncle Sugar's going to pay $250. And why would they pay $250? Because they're going to need Bitcoin to back their debt at some point. I don't think they get that yet. Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, may get that they need stablecoins. But if they ever need Bitcoin to back up our bonds, like, you know, buy a bond, we'll give you some Bitcoin. This just became way more serious. It's like a little theory that I had. I mean, this is not funny. Like if you have this like continual bid in Bitcoin, you can start to have like regular crypto plays, like, Chainlink comes to mind. They're going to connect absolutely everything, right? What about real world assets, right? No one's talking about this, by the way. I know this guy, super smart guy, does all the statistics. Do you realize that no one is talking about DeFi? Nobody. No one is talking about DeFi, which is really interesting, right? You look at these streams. On one hand, the guy's talking about cross-chain, and on the bottom, he's talking about, no one's talking about DeFi. No one. Do you think you're going to need a new financial system with this? Like, in other words, it's like, oh, it's Altseason, everything goes up. Okay. Well, Gann says, famous technical analyst, the market needs a reason to go up. It doesn't need a reason to go down, but it needs a reason to go up. What's the reason? Well, how about all of legacy has got problems? If the US government doesn't have Bitcoin, it said it did, then they don't have the gold. And then what else is out there? Jamie Dimon got a problem, you think? You got to watch out, because in crypto, this thing can happen really quick because altcoins have been suppressed. Which altcoins? I don't know. Any altcoins, bro. Do it by sector, right? DeFi goes first, real world assets, then AI after that. Right? And XRP could just ignite the whole space. XRP could be the rising tide that lifts all boats, because XRP has an enthusiastic retail base, and XRP has got institutional interest, which again is not being reported, which is why Garlinghouse in front of the Senate was the shot heard around the world that no one heard. Okay, C-Buddies Online, the real Derek Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your 4 o'clock in the morning market up. Turn on notifications so you see future streams.